that right now.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome back, everybody, and thank you for returning. I see a lot of people are coming back into the meeting, so I'll handle that in the background. But our first presenter for the afternoon, as I said, we're going to do a little bit of a shift, is Ellen Fehrs from the Pennsylvania Bureau of Geological Survey. The title of her presentation is Pennsylvania Hydrography Dataset. I know that Ellen is a diehard Penguins fan, but despite that, we're looking forward to her presentation anyway.
Well, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now, if that's okay.
Yes. And I'm going to end the poll.
And you can see it fine?
Yep.
All right. Well, as said, my name is Ellen. I work with the Pennsylvania Bureau of Geological Survey, and I'm going to be talking about the Pennsylvania Hydrography Dataset, or PAHD, and the methods I use to derive some of these geometries. Okay, so when this project was conceived, we had a few basic requirements, including that this hydrography be developed from quality level 2 or better LiDAR products, that the resulting geometries be accurate to a 1 to 2400 scale, that those geometries include Z values or elevation values, and this data set was intended to be dynamic. So as we get new cycles of LiDAR flown, these geometries should be updated to reflect or based on that new data. And when most people think of hydrography, they typically think of the National Hydrography Dataset, or the NHD. So I wanted to show a quick example comparing and contrasting the NHD versus PAHD. This is in Allegheny County on the left, where Pittsburgh is and the Penguins. On the left, we have the NHD shown in pink. On the right, we have PAHD shown in orange. And we can see in PAHD where there are features equivalent to what's present in the NHD, PAHD, because it was produced directly from elevation data, it just inherently does a better job of conforming to the underlying hillshade. Likewise, if we look at the hillshade, we can see there are quite a few of these smaller tributary features that are not illustrated by the NHD, but which are picked up by PAHD. So here's a production map showing the hydrography that I've produced to date. I've been working on a HUC 12 or hydrologic unit code 12 by HUC 12 basis. And as you can see, I still have quite a lot of the state to complete, but ideally I will not be producing hydrography for all of Pennsylvania all by myself. I'm going to discuss that a little bit later. But first, I want to get into talking about the methods I used. And my entire workflow is centered around geomorphon processing and the concept of geomorphons. And this is the most important step in my workflow, but it's the only step that is not performed using ArcGIS products. I do have to use GrassGIS to produce these geomorphons. And a geomorphon is a landform classification wherein the software will go through a DEM 1 pixel at a time, and it will assign each of those pixels 1 of 10 landform types based on the shape of the surrounding DEM surface. And that's what is shown on the left. This is a geomorphon product. You can see there's quite a lot of yellow that correlates with the slope classification. But even before we look at ortho imagery, you can still pick out some recognizable features in this geomorphon product. We see this kind of meandering feature through the image, and we can assume that that would probably correlate with an actual stream feature. And when we compare it to the ortho imagery, that does appear to match up pretty well. Now, when I work with geomorphons, I actually produce 3 products. The main product is the channel extent geomorphon shown to the far left, shown in blue, and that is a product that's targeting channel features. And channel features generally correlate with stream features. The other 2 products, I'm not necessarily targeting specific features, but I'm kind of using these other 2 products to winnow down the data that's present in the channel extent feature. If you look at the buffered channel extent feature, you can see It also kind of picks out these channel features. It doesn't do as accurate or as clean a job as the channel extent geomorphon, but it does a much better job of excluding noisy data that is typically picked up in the floodplain by the channel extent product. Likewise, in the valley extent product, this is targeting valley bottoms, or very generally speaking, kind of floodplains. And this product is very good at excluding data that's picked up by anthropogenic features like roads and buildings. If we look at the channel extent geomorphon again, we can see this road feature coming through, and there are a few cells that have been picked up associated with that feature. Ideally, the valley extent is going to winnow those out. So before I use those products against one another, I do perform a few connectivity calculations. So looking at the image on the left, I have the buffered channel extent product. So what I'm trying to do here is look at this raster and determine, okay, if we look at each of these groups of cells, we can kind of form a relationship between how many cells are connected or touching one another and whether that is likely to represent an actual hydrography feature. So I set, for this region, I set a cell grouping threshold of 2,500 cells. So in this image, any group of pixels that includes more than 2,500 cells is shown in red. Everything else is shown in yellow. And those yellow pixels I have determined to be statistically unlikely to represent hydrography features. So all these little yellow features, I think they're very unlikely to represent actual streams. And I just, at this point, discard all those cells. After applying those connectivity calculations, I take these three geomorphon products and I apply some masking operations. And looking at the product of that, this is what that looks like. The blue is the channel extent product prior to the masking. The orange is the same product after having been constrained by the other two geomorphon products. And as you can see, like I said, a lot of these anthropogenic features, these roads that have some blue cells associated with them, little agricultural features like these rills, they have all been excluded by this masking operation. Now, unfortunately, there are some channelized features that probably do represent actual stream channels that have also been winnowed out. And I kind of need to add those back in. So at this step, I'm working with all these orange segments, all these little disconnected segments that I want to connect up into a single cohesive data set. So I perform least cost analysis. In ArcPro, I use the optimal regions connections tool, and I enter in a cost surface shown on the right, along with all these orange segments. And essentially, this tool goes through and examines each of these segments, and based on the cost surface, it determines the least costly path from one segment to another. And that forces connections through all these orange segments. And that's kind of what this looks like on the left, shown in green. I think a lot of this data actually looks pretty good, but you can tell there are definitely features that, because every line segment was forced to connect, there's some kind of funny stuff going on. Like I find it incredibly unlikely that this feature is actually flowing uphill before flowing downhill. So I do finally have to go in with a round of manual QA, QC just to clean up this data and make it look a little bit more realistic. So that is a drive-by overview of my workflow. If you are interested in producing your own hydrography, I encourage you to reach out to me. This workflow is in no way proprietary, so I'm happy to explain in detail what I did. But moving on, an important aspect of compiling this data is attribution. And some attribute fields that are pretty strongly associated with hydrography include permit identifiers, GNIS IDs and names, and reach codes. And these are all attribute values that I take directly from the NHD and assign to equivalent PAHD features. And they're incredibly important for things like FEMA flood insurance rate maps, if you are familiar with the StreamStats application, and even base maps for things like geologic maps. Another attribute field that is incredibly important and which I also take from the NHD is something called a feature code or F code. And an F code defines the functionality of a geometry. So in the left, I have an image showing all the NHD flow lines that overlap the state of Pennsylvania. And they have 37 possible F codes that could be assigned to these features. So I wanted to better understand how F codes worked in Pennsylvania. I made a pie chart showing kind of the use of each of these F codes in Pennsylvania. And you can see there's some pretty strong trends. There are a lot of features that have been assigned an artificial path, an intermittent stream or river, or a perennial stream and river F code. So because these are the most commonly used F codes in Pennsylvania, I wanted to understand a little bit better how they were distributed across the state. So I ended up mapping all the NHD features that had perennial stream and river F codes. I also mapped all the NHD features that had intermittent stream or river F codes. And I don't think you have to be a geologist or a hydrographer to look at these and understand that this is not how water behaves. What I think happened here is probably a number of people were going through and assigning F codes to these features. It looks like they were working on a quad by quad basis. And there are whole sections where it appears as if they didn't even differentiate between perennial and intermittent features. They kind of just assigned everything a perennial F code. And this is something I'm also working towards addressing using flow accumulation. If you are not familiar with flow accumulation, it's another method of producing hydrography. It can be done using the ArcHydro toolset, which is a free toolset that you can use with either ArcMap or ArcPro. Essentially, what it does is it looks at a DEM and it examines every pixel and it determines how many other pixels are flowing into that pixel based on elevation. And you can set these different thresholds to say, well, if that pixel has 50,000 cells flowing into it, it should be defined as a stream. And the lower the flow threshold value, the farther upstream these features are delineated. So I am working to kind of establish a correlation between these flow accumulation thresholds and values like intermittent, ephemeral, and perennial streams. And finally, I do want to address that production map I showed earlier. Again, there's quite a lot of the state that I haven't gotten to. And one way I hope to kind of speed up my own production, or at least publication, is through the conflation of other data sets with PAHD. So the example I'm showing here is Allegheny County hydrography against PAHD. And again, the things that I'm checking to look at conflation, at a potential conflation product, are whether these geometries are accurate to quality level 2 or better LiDAR at a 1 to 2400 scale, whether they have Z values, and if they do not have Z or elevation values, I need to assign them elevation values. And again, this needs to be a dynamic data set that is regularly updated. And all of these aspects of conflation can be addressed with intermediate products that I described in my workflow. So my major takeaways from this are that the NHD geometries are inherently less accurate than PAHD geometries because the current NHD was not produced using elevation data. And this is something I actually hope to contribute to and correct. Our ultimate goal is to establish the statewide data set, but I do long-term want to propagate my own geometries and my own updates up to the national or federal level. Now, the workflow I described, again, it's based on geomorphons, and the geomorphon workflow targets channelized features. And aspects of this workflow can be used to help assign attribution, and it can facilitate conflation of other existing hydrography data sets. And finally, if you take nothing away from this presentation, I do want to say ArcHydro should definitely include a geomorphon processing tool. I have I can't remember if I mentioned this. I've heard through the grapevine that Esri is working on including a geomorphon processing tool. So fingers crossed that that happens. That would be incredibly helpful. And I think I have a little time for questions if anyone has any questions.
Sure. The other option is to, folks, you can put questions in the chat as well.
I got a question from Lee saying, Ellen, could you show the finished map and compare to the prior vector map? So I think he's talking about the NHD versus what I've produced so far. I would be happy to send out more examples. I don't think I have time to pull up the data right now. But like I said, the NHD, the one, I guess, benefit they have over what I have so far for PAHD is they do have statewide coverage. Oh, I do have another example. I kind of moved it to the end because I was worried about running out of time. This is in Berks County, again, showing the NHD in pink, PAHD in orange. But you can see in the, oh wait, am I sharing my screen? Oh yes, yep. I am. Okay, sorry. So you can see in the underlying hillshade, there is this kind of meandering stream feature that doesn't line up with the NHD, but PAHD does pick it out pretty well. And I actually think this is an example of how the NHD probably delineated this pretty accurately initially, but this data is pretty old. Like these geometries are based on maps from like the 80s. So what's very likely is that this feature migrated over time. And again, that's why it's important for PAHD to be a dynamic data set and to have regular updates with regular flights of LiDAR.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. And I don't see any other, oh, do I have time to answer?
Sure, one more.
One more question. How much time have you invested in this and how much computing power does the processing require? Oh, what is the name of the software? Okay, I'll answer the software in the chat. How much time have I invested? I was hired in 2019 and I started, oh gosh, I don't know how to answer this in a short amount of time. I'll answer both of these questions in the chat, if that's okay with everybody.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. Thank you again.
Yep.
Okay. So do we have John or should we just move on?
Yeah, Brendan, I haven't heard back from him.
Okay, so we'll
I'm
go ahead.
From John now. So
Dan
yeah,
and Ben, are you guys ready to go?
Yeah, I am. Ben?
You'll hear us fine?
And
Yep.
you both should be able to share.
Yep, you both are co-hosts.
Okay,
Excellent.
great, because we're in different places.
No worries. Okay, so our next presentation is from Daniel Shaffer and Ben Cunningham from the Allegheny Blue Ridge Alliance. Title is Geospatial Tools and Grassroots Environmental Activism, the Atlantic Coast Pipeline Compliance Surveillance Initiative. Take it away, gentlemen.
Hi, my name is Dan Shaffer. I'm here with my friend and former colleague, Ben Cunningham. From 2015 to 2020, we worked with the Allegheny Blue Ridge Alliance, opposing the construction of the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. Broadly, we created a volunteer-oriented program using out-of-the-box Esri tools to gather geospatial data aimed at monitoring the construction of a major natural gas pipeline in rural mountainous terrain. To do so, we used ArcGIS Desktop, ArcGIS Online, Web App Builder, Story Maps, Survey 123, dashboards, Drone to Map, and Dropbox for storage. Why did we do this? The Atlantic Coast Pipeline was proposed in 2014, canceled in 2020. It was supposed to be a 600-mile-long, 42-inch gas pipeline cutting across 3 states, from West Virginia to southeastern North Carolina. It's to cross the Allegheny Mountains, the Blue Ridge, national forests, national parks, prime farmland, major urban areas, high-quality trout streams, drinking water sources, environmental justice populations, you name it. There was a lot of local opposition to this project. Early on, we realized GIS was going to be an important means of communicating why we thought ACP was a bad project. Several iterations of web maps and multiple story maps were developed to kind of make our points. And we found this was not terribly effective at stopping the project, which had a lot of political buy-in and a lot of money behind it. What was effective was detailed analysis and aerial photography that we provided to our legal partners for challenges in court. The Compliant Surveillance Initiative. By late 2017, it looked like the project was going to move forward. We had to prepare to provide oversight of it, as we could see from other projects such as the rover that regulators couldn't or wouldn't. How are we going to do that? We had volunteers in multiple states with varying levels of technical sophistication, and we had to coordinate actions across 200 miles of remote, rugged terrain. We had to quickly report violations to regulators, and we had to focus on hard data, such as photos from the ground, in-stream water monitoring, and aerial and UAV photo review. And we had to have a lot of people to do it. On the technical side, we had to provide easy access to a lot of data, incorporate aerial photography, show approved construction plans for comparison to what we were finding, allow users to easily report violations to us, and navigate around the mountains and the forest without trespassing or getting arrested on the construction right away. Local volunteers had to coordinate all this, and they might not have good connectivity, so we had to give them all map books and everybody's information. And this meant lots and lots of training sessions across our 200-mile area. We decided to make our GIS an integral part of the monitoring enforcement program and create a model for other projects across the country. This required that we utilize only out-of-the-box functionality so that it would be easy and cheap for other people to replicate. And we had to develop model processes for quick turnaround of data. How do we crowdsource aerial imagery analysis? And we had to semi-automate our reporting to regulators. Survey 123 helped out a lot. We had a simple online form capturing reporter contact info, time and location of the event. We could categorize incidents and have a written description with uploaded photos. All of this updated an online GIS layer where we would vet incidents in a simple dashboard and then update our compliance layer and fill out a report template and send it to the appropriate agency. Generally, we could do all this in 24 hours, a little longer with the aerial photography. As I mentioned, local coordinators had to coordinate people's actions in their local community. So we made map books for all of them, tried to keep it to less than 30 or 40 maps per group. Next, okay. For navigation in the field, we used Avenza maps and custom high-res maps that we made. Avenza is a free app you can download to your phone and download commercial or custom maps and document things with photos, which was useful for us. The CSI mapping system was kind of our online front page. It was a tabbed story map series. Each tab contained a thematic web app. Themes included things like slopes and geology, water resources, land ownership, and of course, the project data itself. Common tools and base maps were applied across all of the maps. In the preceding years, I'd spent countless hours digitizing, georeferencing, and managing the project data as it changed. And this became really useful overlaid on mosaic tile image layers that linked to the official engineering drawings. Also provided good reference for all of our other mapping efforts. In Virginia, erosion and sediment control plans were released, so we mosaicked and georeferenced all of those too, so people could see what was supposed to be happening. The Pipeline Air Force flights is what really set things apart for us. Thanks to our volunteer pilots, we received over 40,000 high-res photos of the pipeline route at various stages of construction. Custom-built gimbals and intervalometers allowed the use of consumer-grade DSLRs to collect nadir photography at 3 to 4 inch resolution. Each photo had a pop-up capturing where and when it was taken, and links to low and high resolution photos, all of which were stored on Dropbox. And assistants, if they wanted, could download the entire low-res package to evaluate them on their desktop much more quickly than they could do online. The swipe tool allowed us to really leverage the aerial mosaics that Ben Cunningham made from the native photography using drone to map. We could compare what was happening on the ground with what FERC and other agencies had actually approved. So if something didn't look right, we'd go check the high-res photos, and it saved us tons and tons of time. Thus, we could see exactly what changes were happening on the right-of-way day to day or week to week. We could track pipe and personnel deployment and watch responses to construction problems in near real time. Our compliance map is where things really got interesting. It was grouped layers of Dominion or agency documented violations and reports from our CSI program. They were symbolized by violation type and reporting organization, and pop-ups linked to the actual file reports. The compliance map showed us what the problems were that the project was encountering, where and how often they occurred, and whether they were being fixed. To the best of our knowledge, no grassroots group had ever attempted a program like this. Though ACP was canceled before construction began where our organization was strongest, we were still able to prove that the concept was sound and the tools we built could work to reliably oversee projects of this scale. Now I'll turn it over to Ben to talk about organizing the folks that made all this possible.
All right,
Ben?
thanks, Dan. And let me share my screen for a moment. All right, is everyone seeing my slide 19 there?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, well,
Just
yeah.
for your sake,
thanks,
guys,
Dave.
I'm not gonna stick to the actual original time. You guys have a little bit more time. Keep
Oh,
going.
okay, great. Wonderful. Well, I hope folks have questions. Well, yeah, thanks, Dan. While I would include Dan among those, who is chiefly responsible for making all this possible, as you saw, all those tools were, due to his creative solutions. It was my job to bring on board all the community member volunteers to implement these tools and resources that Dan and others worked really hard to invent. So really quickly, I'm gonna actually maybe not so quick since we got a little bit of time, but I'm gonna run through some of the challenges we faced in doing some of this GIS equipped community organizing. We brought folks in from different backgrounds and skill levels and had to train them on our GIS, the CSI mapping system, on aerial imagery acquisition and interpretation, on water quality monitoring, and on primarily what to look out for out there and how to submit those observations to us so that we could then turn them into complaints to agencies. Our main goal was to put this professional, professional analysis, couple that with grassroots organizing and do so effectively. Okay, so what were some of the challenges that we faced to organizing this pipeline construction monitoring? Well, there were very variable geographies from the worksite access, as Dan talked about. There were issues of property ownership of remote terrain, forested steep slopes. And of course, we were asking folks to volunteer with us, and we wanted to keep folks, wanted to avoid any trespassing issues that would really hinder us in reporting things to agencies. Also, the organizing environment of these different communities. There was internet connectivity limitations. We're talking from Buckingham County, Virginia, out to Randolph and beyond counties, Harrison County, West Virginia. There was also a lot of tech learning curve to grapple with, and we had also variable levels of existing community organizing structure. There was, as part of the alliance, we had different groups that we were partnered with, but some groups were more organized than others. Let's see. So, and then that gets us into the scope of the project. Yes. So organizing in these rural geographies, as Dan showed, our organizing area, was between 2 states and 10 counties, 5-hour driving distance between them. And each of these pins is a place that we organize meetings at, whether that was a drone training, a general CSI information and recruitment training, water monitoring, water quality monitoring trainings. or local volunteer coordinator trainings, as will be pictured on the next slide, like I'm doing here in Nelson County. I made sure that if nothing else, there's a little transition there. If nothing else, I wanted folks to know how to report their observations to us. And in fact, I made everyone pull out their phones and take down the reporting resources into their contact list. And we call these folks our citizen observers. So at a minimum, we wanted to teach folks what to look for and how to submit. We asked folks to prioritize sending photos to us through apps like Solocator, which stamps a timestamp and bearing and GPS coordinates and so on onto the image, and submit those to Survey 123, as Dan talked about, since that was where we were best able to digest this information. So let me see. Getting into something really cool, as Dan talked about, that really set us apart was our Pipeline Air Force program, where we had folks observing from 2,000 feet and 400 feet and 5'8", which is about how tall I am on a good day. So we got volunteer airplane pilots, volunteer drone pilots. Then we had volunteer photo reviewers, which I'll dig into in a little bit. And of course, our crowdsourced ground photos that I talked about on the last slide that just about anybody could send us. And that was the first thing we made sure folks were able to do. Our volunteer airplane pilots, as Dan said, we were able to have a great volunteer who was able to put a stabilized 20 megapixel DSLR camera onto the floorboards of his aircraft with the Bad Elf GPS Pro Plus paired via Bluetooth to automatically geotag photos every second. And Dan designed that, and then I later discovered we could run those geotagged photos through Drone to Map, just the same as I was doing with drone imagery, but in a corridor format. And this is a little GIF showing you what it was like looking straight down the airplane. So we also had organizing challenges with volunteer drone pilots. Of course, as an organization, we wanted folks to have their Part 107 remote pilot license. Because there are all sorts of issues going on that we were trying to be diligent about reporting. So we also had line of sight issues and nearby launch location issues, and of course, training folks on using these things. Getting the photos to our central CSI team, Dan and I and others presented a really effective way of public oversight. The drones were able to be quickly deployed and gather evidence of construction noncompliance and environmental impacts. And in areas where access to private property can't be attained, or terrain or physical ability present a barrier to monitoring, drones really give you an edge to doing this type of investigation. But then, okay, as we got these amazing tools now, what do we do with all this data, right? We were producing a lot of data. How do we not duplicate work? We didn't want two people looking at the same thing and sending us the same report, or, and how did we, the CSI staff that submit complaints, review observations, and what platforms should folks send to us? Originally, we designed it to be an online-only community of photo reviewers poring over thousands of images, but like many things, that proved harder to manage. So instead, we decided to start having meetups where after a Pipeline Air Force flight is completed, we had these, we would review these photos for violations. We would do this sort of, if anybody's seen the Missing Maps project or Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team mapathons, which I participated in back in college. These photo review sessions were actually great fun and challenging, and to everyone to become familiar with the landscapes in the photos and what non-compliant construction looked like from the air. And with these workflows, as Dan said, we were able to turn this around into complaints to agencies within 48, 72 hours, which was vitally important since the apparent violation may no longer be evident by the time an inspector arrives days later. So it was really important to us to do this really quickly. So we were really inspired by other efforts of getting the public involved and getting GIS involved in conservation and environmental protection. Folks like Frac Tracker, Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team, Earthworks Action, and South Wings. South Wings is an environmental aviation group that basically does like what we were doing, but on a larger scale. And we ended up inspiring others, a couple on like the folks in North Carolina Pipeline Watch. We provided them with a bunch of data, and they were able to model a lot of their activities after us. And then the still ongoing project, the Mountain Valley Pipeline Project, beleaguered one down in southwestern Virginia and West Virginia. We have a sister group called Mountain Valley Watch that was doing similar work to what we did, and we coordinated our efforts quite a bit. And lastly, we even had coordinated with folks from Pomona College, had an intern come out and help me do water monitoring data during the summer, or water monitoring gathering during the summer. And and hopefully hopefully you see this and think, wow, maybe we could implement some of those tools, or I know a community that could use some of these out of the box solutions that Dan was telling you about. So lastly, what were the impacts on community organizing that I learned from this? This was a really new way to inspire our coalition members and the public to action. Folks felt really empowered by seeing these amazing tools that, as Dan said, we haven't seen anybody else do it to this level before. There's also a new way to use the public comment and attention to pressure change in the regulatory system. I mean, I remember hearing over here, one of our folks over there was told by an inspector in West Virginia or someplace that, like, wow, we wish we had imagery like that to do to do this work. And we liked hearing that. We wanted this type of stuff to proliferate. And lastly, as folks on this call or this meeting will appreciate, we thought this was a really new way to use GIS effectively for protecting the public good. So that's what I have for you. And if you wanted to ask me and Dan more questions, here's our email. I think that's it. Dan covered a lot in the beginning there. I hope I didn't go over. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Let me see.
Awesome. And you could probably, I think you're.
There we go.
Awesome.
Any
You can
questions?
put your information in the chat as well. Thank you
Sure.
very much. Okay. Our next presenter is Bineeta Sihota from the Baltimore City Department of Transportation. The title of her presentation is Baltimore DOT Virtual Snow Operational Environment and Dashboards. I actually got a sneak peek at this presentation yesterday, and you are in for a treat. So Bineeta, you can go ahead and take it away, please.
Thank you, Brendan. Can you hear me clearly?
I can.
Okay, thank you very much. So good afternoon, everybody. I am Bineeta Sihota, and I am the GIS supervisor at Baltimore City Department of Transportation. I presented a fraction of this project last year, but we have done a lot of work in comparison to the last presentation versus today. So one more time, I'm presenting the bigger picture today. So I'm going to share the virtual environment as well as the 2 GIS dashboard we have created for our remote snow operation. So just a very quick introduction about this event. The snow operation is a very complex and critical event, which requires a lot of coordination. Primarily, Department of Transportation leads the operation, and it is supported by other agencies like DPW, Rec and Park, Health Department, Emergency Management, Mayor's Office, Fire Department, Police Department, and so on. So this operation has many critical components, like setting the command structure, communication, facilities management, assigning roles and responsibilities, road closures, COVID protocol, weather forecast, technological integration, as well as activation and deactivation of the snow operation. So in normal circumstances, we set up our command center at 414 North Calvert Street within Baltimore City. But for last 2 years, we have been using this virtual environment very successfully. So without any further delay, I'm going to share my another screen. Okay, can you guys see that Teams page?
We can.
Okay, that's good. So in 2019, Baltimore City implemented Microsoft Team 365 suite in every agency. Since every agency is using this common platform, so it was very convenient for the Department of Transportation to use MS Team and Channel to use the virtual environment and share our communication and coordination with other agencies. So as you are seeing on my screen, we already have created some teams. These are the kind of group for the users. And in the teams, we have created one team over it, which is, you can see it's called DOT Snow Operation Team. So this team is used by approximately 299 team members from Department of Transportation, as well as overall 100 employees from other agencies, as well as from contractors. So based on their different roles and responsibilities, we have created second tier of groups, which is called channel. So underneath the teams, you will see multiple channels, which are related to different groups of people who are performing different kind of responsibilities. These teams and channels, they were created and maintained by our IT team. So they can add more people, they can delete more people in the group, and they can provide the more technical assistance in this creation of this virtual environment. So right now you are looking at different channels. So for example, you are seeing general shift A, shift B, contractor communication, DOT management, and skeleton shift. So these are having the special kind of functions and special kind of roles. So the general channel is specifically for everybody who is part of this crew, and information can be shared with everybody who's part of general. The whole snow operation crew is divided into two shifts, shift A and shift B. These shifts, they work in rotation. Shift A works, then shift B works, and then if the third shift is needed, then shift A comes again in the C. So all the working crew is divided into two shifts. Then the next channel is contractor communication. This particular channel has the members as our field supervisors, data entry people, as well as the contractors. Then the next channel is for DOT management. This channel is dedicated to the director's office because they have different kind of functionalities and they need different kind of resources. So it's a specific different group. And then last is a skeleton shift. So sometimes it's not going to snow too much, so we have to have a smaller crew, so they do not need access to every resource. So for this reason, only specific people, the field crew will be working, as well as some field supervisor will be working. So this channel has a separate layout. So I'm going to show you example of one of the channel, shift A, so you can see what kind of information we have integrated in this platform. Before I started explaining the different tools and applications DOT is using, it's a very interesting thing that in the Microsoft team, you have tons of choices to add different kind of applications as well as different kind of file formats when you are creating those channels and teams. So as you can see on my screen, it is showing that you can add different kind of tables or list or PowerPoint or dashboards or websites or Word document. Even there is a very long list of applications. You can scroll for those. So based on what was available and what we use in DOT, we were able to incorporate every resource on this virtual environment. So you will see on the top of the ribbon, there are different tabs. These different tabs are different pages which are performing different kind of functions. So I'm going to show you each of them one by one. So the first tab is the post. This is our main communication page. As you can see on this page, there are already some video recordings are there. So that this is the sample of our very last snow event. So how many meetings we had during that shift, this is shown over here. We also use this page for communication other than meetings. We use our messages, chats, and even there is any special announcement for this specific shift that is also displayed over here. Second tab is files. This is the place where we share all our resources in terms of, it can be a table or folder or document or image, anything. So right now you are seeing that I just have saved my the introduction page over here, and everybody can see it. We can share our some crucial information like overtime, snow removal request, some other information like shift snow hourly sheets, and especially for GIS people, we are abide to download hourly PDF of our snow work progress in the field. So I'm going to show you a couple of the examples that we update these PDFs hourly on this shift channel. So we track our progress in the field in two areas, the primary snow zones and secondary snow zones. And this map is going to show you that the entire Baltimore city is divided into 104 primary snow zones. And you are seeing these headings, these are the IDs of those primary snow zones. And every primary snow zone is subdivided into secondary snow zones. And Department of Transportation use city works for the snow operation progress in the field. We create work orders in city works to show the number of passes. So whenever one truck passes, one truck completes the one pass, the information enters in the system as one pass. When they finish the two passes, the information is updated to two passes. The GIS team joined the city works information with the GIS layer. So whenever the information was being updated in the city works, it was immediately shown in the GIS layer. As you can see, we are using different color schema to show the number of passes. So for example, gray color for 0 passes, yellow color for 1 pass, blue color for 2 passes, purple is for 3 to 5 passes, and red color for 6 or more passes. So we were able to show the information in real time when the number of passes were updated in the field. GIS team was updating those PDF maps regularly per every 1 hour and sharing that PDF map with the whole team, because these maps were shared to the rest of the people who were working in the field. So this kind of information we keep updating in our file folder. The next tab is the shift information. This is basically the introduction of the shift. And in this table, here you will see what is the date, what is the number of events, which shift starting from which time to which time, who is the shift in charge, as well as who are the leaders working for different fields in terms of city works, IT, GIS, inspection, towing, safety, even the in charges from the BGS or other interagencies. So whenever anybody needs any phone number or contact number while they're working on the snow, they can go to this page and they can call to that person directly using this page. We also incorporated CityWorks directly from this environment. As I said that we use CityWorks for our work progress in the field. Right now, you are not seeing any information in this page on the left-hand side. Usually when we started adding the number of passes, it started populating those number of passes in the back end of the CityWorks. So the people who are working on snow operation, they can directly access to the CityWorks using this platform. The GIS team created their first snow operation dashboard. We compiled all our real-time maps and we put into this channel. So you can see here you are seeing a couple of these interactive maps. The first two maps, these are the real-time maps, which are taking information from CityWorks and updating those information in the interactive map. Just like I showed you on the PDF map. So we are using the same kind of color schema for number of passes for primary zone, same kind of color schema for the secondary zone. The third map is for the weather condition. And this map shows the information about different types of estimation for precipitation, for snow, as well as the wind direction and different kind of natural details. The fourth map is the 311 request. Baltimore City residents, they use 311 system to register their complaints about the snow accumulation in their area. The GIS team connected the 311 system directly with our GIS layer. So this is a real-time map. So whenever somebody enters their complaint in the system, the physical address of that person is automatically geocoded, and we can see the location of those complaints on the map. We are using two different kind of color schema and symbols. When there is an open complaint or an active complaint, that turns into blue snowflake, and when the complaint is completed or closed, it turns into gray color. So just by looking at these symbols on the map, the crew can easily see that what are the areas from where we are getting the maximum complaints. Along with these four important maps, we also have a long list of other important maps which are useful for snow. For example, DOT also maintains the snow plowing in the bike area. And we have created this map for contractors, so they can identify what areas are in priority 1 and what areas are in priority 2. We also have integrated BGE power outage map, because power outages sometimes they become really very critical, especially when it is a severe storm. So this real-time map shows the number of power outages as well as how many customers they are affected by this power outage. The third next map is for broken water main locations. This is DPW's taken from DPW. This map shows the real-time location of the issues where we have some power outages. Okay, this map is not working. Maybe their server is down. So anyways, I will just move forward. So using these kind of information where the there is a power shortage or there is a water issues, these information can be very useful for our crew. We also given some flexibility to the users to directly to access to CityWorks. Even when they are using the dashboard, they can access to CityWorks backend. They can go to the 311 system, AVL2 system, Storm Prediction Center, and so on. There are many other agencies who work very closely with DOT, and we keep an eye on their announcements and important messages. So all those agencies' direct web links are here attached on this dashboard. For example, Mayor's Office of Homeless, Center for Disease Control and Prevention, Mayor's Office of Disabilities, Emergency Preparedness, Public School, Emergency Management, and all these things. So this is a very handy tool for the snow staff to look for the information directly from the dashboard. We also incorporated NavMan web-based application, NavMan Director. This is a closed application. The users, they have to use their login and password. This application shows the real-time movement of the trucks which are assigned by different agencies which are working during the snow operation. So you can track where they are working right now. Even you can check their last 48 hours history, how they are working and where they are working. The crew members, they can directly access to Baltimore 311 system from here. Same way they can access to web EOC. The emergency management staff, they directly, they use this application for their work performance. And then we also added one story map, GIS-based story map for snow removal program. This shows the complete picture of this program. And you can see on the tab, we have different tabs over here. We have introduction, snow maps, different kind of where we have our emergency management center, what kind of preparation we are doing, what kind of equipments, technology, all this information is attached in this story map. Usually the administration use this application for presentations while they are meeting with the council members or mayor. And the last application is My Collab Softphone. This is the softphone service we use internally during the snow as well as with the resident. So the group which is taking the phone calls, they can directly access to the phone system from this dashboard. So Shift A and Shift B, they have exactly the same kind of system created for them. So they can use each and every application used for snow operation. I'm going to show you one more example for DOT management channel. So as I said, this is a very comparatively smaller group. The folks from the director's office, they actually use this channel. So you will see the first two tabs. First is for the communication, second is for the files. The third tab we have is another dashboard we have created for them. This is the snow administrative dashboard. And we were working last year on this dashboard and we tested this one this year and it worked really good. And we got really positive feedback from the director's office, and we are going to keep using this thing for upcoming years. So the very first diagram you're looking at, it is showing the salt consumption and reserves information. Every 2 hourly, we get the information from our salt dome in charges about how much, what is the status of the salt. So we keep updating that information, and this diagram helps the administration to look where they have to order for the new salt, as well as if they have to transfer the salt reserve from one dome to the another. So this is a useful diagram for them. The next two maps, they are the similar ones, which one I just showed you in the previous dashboard. The third map is the salt box location. Department of Transportation also responsible for maintaining, locating, and filling the salt boxes throughout the city. We have two types of salt boxes, the regular salt boxes and salt boxes with the drawings. So the red dots, they are showing the drawing artistic salt boxes. So I'm just going to click on one of the example. If you click on these locations, you will see.
We got like 1 or 2 minutes left.
Okay. So it shows the location, who is the artist, which neighborhood, and you can see actually the picture, what kind of salt boxes there. The next map is showing the critical areas. All the pink lines, they are showing all the major streets as well as our gateways. And then we have 2 more colors. These are the assignments distributed between Baltimore City and Baltimore County, because this is the Baltimore City's border where we have both of these jurisdictions working together. So their assignments are also visible on this map. And the last 2 maps, they are showing the contractor's information. The director's office can directly access to any of the contractor via using this GIS map, because their phone numbers and their email addresses are here. So this virtual environment is being used by DOT for last 2 years, and we have covered approximately 12 snow events with 29 shifts and approximately 345 hours in total. And I'm very happy to tell you that this particular project, our virtual environment as well as our dashboards, it received Innovative Transportation Solution Award in 2021. And we are also nominated for IDC Smart Cities North America Award for 2022. So it's a success story, and we are adamant to keep updating our applications, keep improving it. And the good news for us is that the director is very enthusiastic about this application, and they have given us the permission that this year onwards we can work remotely on snow, and the staff doesn't, the 80% of the staff can work from home rather than going to the emergency management center. So if you guys have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions.
Why don't we go ahead and put the questions in the chat, because we're
Okay.
right at the, but really, very interesting. I was actually taking some screenshots as somebody who works on a shift A or a shift B here in our nation's capital when it snows, I can appreciate all of the flow of information, and the way you've combined it together is deserving of an award, I would say. So you can go ahead and stop sharing your screen. And Justin, you can start sharing your screen. Our last presenter. There we go. Our last presenter for the afternoon is Justin Bridwell from Dewberry. The title of his, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The title of his presentation is Northwest Florida Base Level Engineering Data Viewer. So Justin, go ahead and take it away.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
We can.
Okay. I'm just going to try to start this from the beginning. Can everyone see my screen okay? Is everyone seeing Dewberry NWF BLE Viewer PowerPoint sort of slide?
We are.
Okay. I'm sharing the wrong screen here. Give me 1 second. Stop sharing. Let's see. Stop sharing. 1 second. I'm going to share the other screen for you. Share screen. Okay, there we go. So, back up to my first slide here.
We're not seeing your screen yet. Oh, now we're seeing. Okay.
Okay.
You've got your Zoom meeting.
All right. I apologize.
All right.
did
No
a Zoom
worries.
slide. Let's see. Let's try this one last time. Okay, can you guys see my screen at all?
I could. No, when that.
Are you working on a multi-monitor?
Yes, yes, that's the issue. I'm not seeing
Okay.
any of the. I'm not seeing any of the.
The
Zoom
green
meetings.
share screen tools.
Sometimes my presentation mode covers it up. And yesterday, even I forgot that I have to pick my window to share and then click the blue share button. I know that's a simple recommendation, but I've looked over it in the past.
Okay, 1 second here. I'm just basically not seeing anything at all. Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm back. Okay. Share screen. There we go. Okay. Okay, here we go.
There you
Back
go.
on track. All right, I'm just going to share. I'm just going to share it from here. Really, the meat of what I want to share is a web application that we basically built around a new modeling technique called BLE. For you, those of you who don't know, I didn't introduce myself very well. I got flustered with all these technical problems. My name is Justin Bridwell. I am a GIS developer at Dewberry. This is a presentation that I have shared before recently at the Virginia Lakes and Watershed Association conference. And I thought it was a good fit. And I'm going to kind of dive into some of the technical sort of aspects of the application itself, because this is, after all, the Esri GeoMUG. I want to kind of talk about the kind of Esri development aspects of this. So without further ado, just going to launch into this. What is base level engineering? It's basically an engineering technique that generates watershed-wide flood hazard information. And it basically uses a simplified hydraulic and hydraulic engineering methods so that you can generate wide area floodplain data for areas where the effective data is not accurate or it's missing. Say like large swaths of Northwest Florida, basically in the swamp around coastal areas, where some of this data is not completely accurate. Now, the effective data, of course, is still sort of the, you know, the Bible of what we go by, but this kind of gives a better picture of kind of the changing flood hazards that are they're affected in these watersheds due to climate change, flooding, and other factors. It's equivalent to the high quality Zone A studies. It provides a risk assessment for areas with, like as I said, with no current mapping or water surface elevation data. Provides the most current data to older mapped SFHA areas, special flood hazard areas for those of you who aren't CFMs, and does not immediately, but it doesn't immediately replace the effective study area. It's really used as a guide, if you will, and I'll show you in the application kind of how we utilize this. It's created basically from high-res LiDAR bathymetric data that's then taken through this automated sort of modeling process. And then it's manually cleaned. And it's kind of given a tiered system based on how much it has to be manually cleaned, the amount of adjustment that has to be made. And so here's kind of what we're talking about here. The application that we sort of built to incorporate the BLE methodology modeling is, it utilizes a test watershed in Northwest Florida. And we've got a couple different areas here that we're calling special effective study areas, where we really aren't going to be using that data. It's AE, zone AE, or it's coastal. And so I know this isn't coastal, but this area right here where my cursor is at, we kind of just used to simulate a coastal area. And again, we're going to primarily be looking at the BLE 1% floodplain and the BLE 0.2% floodplain. The other data that we're kind of using, we have the raster data, which are the depth grids. So we have 10%, 4%, 2%, 1%, 0.2%. And we also have that same data for the water surface elevation. We also have a probability grid that shows the probable chance of a location flooding annually and over a 30-year period. And in addition to that, we have the vector data. So let me know if anyone can hear this at all. If you guys can't hear it, this might be a little stretch too far technically. It's just a short video that's been produced that kind of explains the BLE process. Can anyone hear this at all?
I can't, when you share the screen, I think there's a way to share
Yeah, let me see.
share the sound as well.
Let's see. Share sound. There we go. Okay, let's see.
That can be used by floodplain administrators, emergency managers, residents, business owners, insurance agents, and surveyors to make more informed decisions. Here are some key areas where BLE data can be leveraged. When it comes to floodplain management, development review, and permitting, BLE data can be used as the best available information in the Zone A flood hazard areas and guide regulation in areas where no special flood hazard area was mapped. BLE generated water surface elevation data can guide new building construction, substantial improvements, and repairs to substantially damaged buildings. For letters of map change, the estimated BFE generated from BLE mapping can be used when applying for a letter of map amendment or a letter of map revision based on fill in the Zone A flood hazard area. Additionally, the engineering models may be used to develop required modeling for letters of map revision and conditional letters of map revision, as well as development projects that will add bridges and culverts or alter the flood source location. When it comes to hazard mitigation and emergency management, BLE can be integral to performing risk assessments, developing a mitigation strategy, identifying and prioritizing mitigation projects, mapping evacuation routes, and locating emergency shelters. BLE data also has general application for community planning and zoning, flood insurance ratings, and risk communications. For community planning, land use, and zoning, BLE can help identify and better enforce land use regulations and ordinances to prevent development in flood-prone areas. It can also be used for transportation planning, critical and emergency facility siting, and access planning. When it comes to flood insurance ratings, an estimated BFE from the BLE viewer can be used to potentially lower the premium for a flood insurance policy in Zone A flood hazard areas. And for risk communications, BLE data enables better communication by making flood hazards more relatable to the public through the production of flood depth grids and by making the data publicly available on a web viewer platform.
Okay, that's pretty much explains the technical engineering side of BLE. Now, how have we used that in an application here at Dewberry? We've built this tool which we call the NWF Northwest Florida BLE Viewer, and this is part of their larger Northwest Florida Water Management Association's larger dashboard. And it's still in development, but I'm gonna demonstrate this for you and kind of give you a little peek under the hood. So the first thing I kind of want to show you and talk about in this application is that it's built using the ArcGIS API for JavaScript 4.17. It also uses some other more open source APIs like Bootstrap, jQuery. In order to kind of get this data heavy, layers and features into our application, one of the things that we had to do was we had to utilize what's called tile layers. I'm just going to show you kind of what we did. We brought these layers in as tile layers, as cached tile layers that we kind of published from ArcGIS Pro to our server. But we also brought the same layers in as feature layers that we were able to query. It's location based so that we can render really quickly, so you can see these large data heavy layers, on the map. But then the querying that's done behind the scenes when the user clicks on a specific point, that doesn't need to be rendered. And so we brought it in a second time to kind of speed up the process. I think it's important when you're developing application using Esri technology or other APIs to be able to have a good user experience. And so the Esri API allows you to do that, and it's a good technique we've kind of been drawing on lately for our application development. Just going to reload this to show you. So this is the application that we built. Essentially, what you're seeing here is Northwest Florida. We have, as default, we have our BLE 1% floodplain and our 0.2% floodplain. And you will also see these detailed study areas. Now, these detailed study areas are Zone AE. Our BLE is really good only for the Zone A. We've also got this effective coastal detailed study area that we've kind of simulated. As you can see, this is not on the coast. We picked a watershed, as a test scenario that it's not on the coast. So we just kind of simulated that. But what we've got is we've got some additional functionality we've built in that kind of is going to create a reverse mask. And so this uses the custom info template widget through the API. So when the user clicks, this is the primary functionality of this application is revealed. And so what you're looking at here is you're looking at the BLE results in one panel. You can see the point where the user clicked. And then you've also got the changes between the BLE and the effective, which is the old map, if you will, to show that, you know, if there's a change based on this estimated BLE return in the flood risk. And so you can see by our legend that we have an increased flood risk in these pink sort of areas. Below that, we're bringing in a lot of data based on this query from where the user clicked at. Let me choose a better area here. As you zoom in, you're going to see houses pop up. And so you might have a house on or near one of these floodplains. And so I'm just going to click right here to kind of show you. You click on a house, you're going to kind of see a different data set than you would if you just clicked in one of the unpopulated areas. And so what we're seeing here returned, we're having our estimated BFE. We've got the effective risk and the BLE risk. We're not using ground elevation since we're basically pulling this from the being building footprints. We're using the lowest adjacent grade instead. So we've got 186.4. In addition to that, we're bringing in the flood events, the flood depth, and the water surface elevation values based on where the user clicked. We're also bringing in the annual chance of flooding and the chance over 30 years. We've got a bunch of different tabs up here. So in addition to the BLE and the change between the BLE and effective, we've also got our LOMA view. As you can see, we've got the contours, and you can see over here the detailed study area. Now I'm gonna click on that just to demonstrate that there's really no data that's going to be returned from there, and it warns you when you mouse over there. But we're able to generate reports from this. Let's just see if this works or not. Take a second here. Sorry about that. I think I've got something that's not working in my server, the back end for the report. But it basically will produce a report that's essentially all of this for the user to utilize. We also have a tab that takes you to a direct link to the Northwest Florida Management District flood portal.
Got about 2 minutes left.
Okay, this is where that's incorporated in. Let me just choose a coastal area to show you our coastal things. Now, normally for the effective detailed study areas, you're not going to be able to see any data if you're mousing over here. We want to see the effective data. So I'm going to click in this area. We have a new experimental sort of tab over here. So as of right now, you're not going to see any data returned. Everything is pretty much NA. This is only for kind of the viewers. Here's our disclaimer. The coastal viewer displays BLE information inside effective flood zones. The viewer is meant solely for determining flood hazard during a non-coastal flood event. And so what you see is we've created this reverse mask over here where we are going to be returning some data. Well, we've returned the ground elevation anyway, and we're returning the effective risk. So that's pretty much all I'm going to have time to demonstrate with this. There's a lot of functionality here. It uses a lot of the great widgets from the Esri API, including the custom info template widget. We're able to also basically draw an area, and you can clip the data out and basically download the data. This is some custom functionality we've kind of built into there. I'm not going to demonstrate that since we're running out of time. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. If you have if you have any further questions, let me see if my conclusion slides here. Please reach out to me. This is a tool that we've basically, utilizing this new BLE technique to give people a better picture, the community, local governments, planners, so they can kind of see in these areas where the data is really missing and it's not been updated or it's outdated and old, to kind of give people a better picture of the flood risk that might be affecting their area. Thank you for your time.
Awesome. And thank you for presenting. Thank all of our presenters today. Y'all did a wonderful job. And it's nice to bring these things to bear. I'm going to go ahead now and turn it back over to Jason, but I'm going to share the results of the poll. Can you guys see the results?
We sure can, Brendan. So folks, just for those of you that have been looking at the agenda, we've kind of made an audible just to get everybody on their way. I know the likelihood if we give you a break right now, we're probably not going to see anyone. So just the quick update on the audible is we're going to go through the poll results here. I want to show you a few different ways that you can interact with GeoMUG moving forward. And then we may or may not, depending on your live responses, we may or may not have another virtual hangout, and we'll get you on your way. So look, do you want to go through these questions, Brendan, or you want me to take this?
Why don't you can go through and take those.
So the reason I want to make sure you understand why we did these questions, and thank you to everybody that took the time and answered these poll questions when you came back from lunch. We're always trying to get feedback. We're actually trying to do more feedback and just to apply that into our, ever-changing users group here to support you even better. So did you know there was a large group of GIS users who you could reach via LinkedIn posts via our GeoMUG group? So this did not surprise me, seeing the majority of folks said, no, we didn't know we could use the GeoMUG group. So to that end, if I share my screen here, give me 1 minute. Can I share my screen while the poll things are up?
I guess we'll find out.
And if not, that's okay. I'll just go to the poll and then I'll show the examples after. Do you guys see our website?
Yes.
I do.
Okay, so I guess this will be the first thing I'll share. I did share this earlier. A couple of things that we are doing is we want to make sure people know that you can bring stuff to us that we may or may not approve, right? Just for our community to publicize things via our LinkedIn and GeoMUG channels. Something else we're discussing and trying to work on the mechanics of this GeoMUG LinkedIn group is, if you'll notice, like you see Will's, he posted the agenda here, there isn't the ability to share. And I think we can have even a greater response or broadcast of events, job postings, other user group meetings, right, in our region, et cetera, conferences of the like. I think it would be awesome if we could share things. So that's something that we're working on. But I think what I want you to take away from that poll question is if you are interested in broadcasting something via our group, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, and then just be patient in how we work through that together with you all. Are there ways you can think of that our LinkedIn group could help you, right? This is why I spent so much time talking about it, because I already saw this answer, and I think that is outstanding. So at least half of the people that responded were like, yeah, I think that would be a great way to broadcast information. Okay, for the golf outing. So as of right now, when we say golf, we're thinking Top Golf. And for the people that are on this call, this webinar, if you have never done Top Golf, you don't need to play golf to have fun at Top Golf. And we've had exactly one of those. That was last year. There wasn't a lot of attendees, but fun was had. And it's good to know that it doesn't matter here, and maybe we'll lean a little more towards June because a couple of people actually voted towards June. So from a social event standpoint, please stay on the lookout for that in the future as far as a social event with us. And then as far as, trying to gauge interest on the GeoMUG cycling event, we have 4 for Philly, 3 for DC, and then I guess the majority of the respondents are not a cyclist. Thank you for your feedback there, because that's something that we have an opportunity to do here this year. And we will take that input and respond back to the, the GeoMUG group family here accordingly. So I'm going to close the polls, I guess, or are you guys still seeing my screen?
We can see.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think the polls are gone.
Okay, I probably was the only one looking at them.
Yep, I think you were, because I would have to share.
So number 1, I want, just for those of you that want a quick link to our LinkedIn presence, I'm going to share this in the chat. And then I'm hoping the majority of people have gone here before. And just as far as showing you what has changed since our fall meeting in early December, we actually have, it is still our Esri website, our Esri hub site, but we actually do have an alias now to make it a little easier to get to folks, to get to us. And that is geomug.org. So that's probably not a hyperlink, but if you put that in your browser, you will be able to get to this address, right? It basically forwards it to this address. We are looking forward to updating images. Those are dated images, right? But it has been a little while since we've had an in-person event. I feel comfortable sharing with folks on the call here that at least it is in the planning but not approved phase. Most of you that have been a part of GeoMUG in years past know that we like to tag on to Esri's Mid-Atlantic User Conference, which they have not had for a couple of years for obvious reasons. As of right now, it is in the works that can and hopefully will happen at the end of this year. So please stay tuned for that Esri MUC announcement for more information there. Additionally, we have, this is new. So I have no idea how much time and effort Will Doan and our social media team has put into this, but we have a YouTube channel now. And the reason we did that, this is like hot off the press. These are the first 2 presentations from the recordings from last year's get together. So this is should get you to a link to the Geospatial Mid-Atlantic Users Group YouTube channel. So if you subscribe to that, as we post videos, we're going to try to chunk it out so it's not the whole big long recording and you have to try to fast forward and get through it. We are going to try to provide what you saw today, or maybe you were only able to be here for the lightning talks or the plenary, or you missed the plenary and you were here in the afternoon. We want to make sure we publicize that information and all the hard work people put into those presentations for our conferences. And then last but not least, this is a little known nugget here, but I don't know how many of you are aware or are even Instagram users, but we are on Instagram and our handle is GeoMUGs. Okay, GeoMUG was already taken, but GeoMUGs, if you want to give us a follow there, that's another avenue where we are trying to share information. We are at this time have decided not to have a Twitter presence, nor not to have a Facebook presence. After polling a lot of folks and getting the feeling that most people like keeping that for personal reasons. So this is kind of where we're anchored right now. So Brendan, did I miss anything? I'm just trying to give the public service announcement here. We've got our new logo.
I think
right?
you've got it
New logo, new name, new ways. to
tidied up
interact.
pretty well, right at 2 p.m. So
Oh, look at that.
I've never known people to be upset that a meeting ended a little early.
Right.
But why don't we do this? And I would also be remiss if we didn't thank all the people that helped make this meeting possible, specifically Katie Miga, who put together the program, and Sue, who does all the communication, obviously
Yes.
yourself, and all the other board members who've worked to make this happen.
Yes. We are a big growing team here. And as it says on our website, we are always open to new blood, right? So if you have some free time and are willing to, take an hour out of your week every couple weeks or so, we'd love to have your input. And Brendan, thank you very much for your MC work and another great meeting today.
No worries. And also, just to throw the carrot out there, it's many more GIS points than just showing up, to actually run something. If you're somebody who is either working towards your GISP or trying to keep it, it does help quite a bit. So why don't we do this? We still have 50 or so people on here. I would propose that I would be willing to stick around for one more quick 10-minute random virtual hangout. So why don't we give people to like maybe a minute, and if you don't want to hang out, drop off, but we'll go ahead and we'll create some rooms, and we'll do a quick hangout for those who are left. I'm gonna wait.
They're dropping quick. It's
Well,
Friday, it's birthday.
Could be that Justin and I are hanging out together, or Jason and I are hanging out together, but I think we'll get a couple. All right, I'm gonna split us into 3 rooms. And I'm gonna open all the rooms, and we'll do it for 10 minutes, and then we'll bid ourselves adieu.
Very good.